Hi, and welcome to the Live and Invest Overseas podcast. I'm Kat Kalashian, joining you from Paris. I am the senior Europe correspondent for Live and Invest Overseas. But today we're here to talk about more than just Europe. We're here to talk about how to get a work permit overseas, or the options for getting a work permit overseas. It's not an easy thing. It's very, very much an uphill battle for any foreigner to get a work permit overseas or get a job in a foreign country, because most countries prioritize their employment for their own citizens, of course, and they limit the extent to which a foreigner can work in a country, whether that's by profession or, number of hours worked or, whatever it is. Number of months or weeks worked in the year. So there are limitations for foreigners that exist in almost every country. So, for example, many countries restrict highly skilled professions to their own citizens. So a lawyer or a doctor wanting to work in a new country usually isn't going to be able to do that because those are restricted professions. If it is available as an option, you will need to requalify in that country. So if you have a medical license, legal license to practice, you'll need to redo those licenses in the country that you're living in, which also means redoing them in the language of your new country if it's different. So it can be very difficult, as you're seeing, to get a job overseas, whether you have a skilled profession you'd like to outsource to a new country, whether you want to start a new business, whether you just want to be employed. There are some options though. If you have STEM training, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, if you've got any training in that field, you're more likely to be sought after by certain countries looking to fill certain skilled positions in their workforce. Another option is teaching English. A TEFL certification isn't always necessary. It will sometimes be a prerequisite, but even if it's not a requisite, it will mean a better salary in most cases. So it's worth getting your TEFL certification if you're thinking about teaching English overseas, which is a great option. I know many people that have done this over the years, so it's definitely one of the most common ways to get a job overseas, or at least make money overseas. And many countries around the globe will accept a TEFL certification for you to apply for the work visa. So it can be worth your time to get that certification. You can also create work for the local population by starting your own business. Often, if this is an option in the country, there will be tax incentives for you to set up your business there. Keep in mind, as I said already, you're going to have to operate in the language of your new country, unless, of course, you're teaching English or another language. You're really going to need to speak some amount of the local language. Even if you're working in a tourism industry, even if you're giving tours in English or whatever it may be, there's going to be things that you need to do in the local language. So whether you're an employee or an employer, you're going to have to keep that in mind. Generally speaking, there are just two different kinds of work permits around the world. The first allows you to work at a specific company doing a specific job. Usually it must be proven that that job can't be completed by a native local. So if you can find a company to sponsor you for a certain position, this is definitely the easiest way to go and the most common way to go. The second option is to just get an open work permit that allows you to apply for work in the country. So it allows you to just go out and apply for whatever. And generally speaking, this one is going to be very difficult to get. You're either going to need to be married to a local or to have already gone through the residency process and to be a permanent resident, which it can be 2 to 5 to 10 years, depending on the country. So that's definitely the longer route and the more difficult route. If you are in the age bracket of 18 to 35, you have many more options available. So young adults seeking employment overseas have it easy. There are 61 countries, to be precise. Most countries in the world that you would want to work in offer what's called a working holiday visa. So you can apply for this online via the country's immigration website. And it's a very easy application. A lot of people around the world do it every day. So you don't need to hire a lawyer or a visa service to do this, which will save you money. And it usually allows you to work for just up to 12 months. And there are just a few restrictions. Some countries might ask you for proof of funds that, to support yourself if you lost the job, I guess, and also medical insurance, because they don't want you to be a burden on their medical system. So they're going to want you to show that you have taken care of your own medical needs preemptively. For everyone else, the options are more limited, and you're probably going to want to get help from a lawyer or a visa application service. One that we have heard good things about is called Visa First. But the process for either applying for residency in order to get a work permit or to just apply directly for a work permit, unless the company is doing it all for you, it can be convoluted, time-consuming, confusing, counterintuitive. So it's often worth paying for an expert's advice rather than trying to do it yourself and ending up making a mistake and costing you more time and money. So let's get to the countries. We have 9 countries that are great options for getting a work permit overseas. The first is Australia, which historically was one of the easiest countries in the world to get a work visa. It has become more difficult, but it is still possible. People under 30 from most European countries can apply for a visa via the Working Holiday Maker program, which allows you to work in Australia while you're there on holiday. Everyone else, though, would need to apply for the Temporary Skilled Shortage visa, which is visa number 482. This would be sponsored by an employee for a maximum of 4 years, and it would also allow you to bring an immediate family, so your spouse and your children, and you could all come and go as frequently as you would like. You will need to have a clean criminal background. That's going to be true for all these countries. There is some wiggle room there, so depending on the circumstances, it might not be a deal breaker if you have some small misstep on your record, but you will need to be an fluent English speaker and have all of the necessary qualifications for the post that you're taking up. Again, that's going to be par for the course. Just get those little terms and conditions out of the way. Number 2 is New Zealand, which has a range of jobs on its long-term skills shortage list, the LTSSL. If you meet the requirements for one of those positions, you can get an essential skills visa, and that allows you to bypass proving that a local couldn't fill the job for you. So it allows you to take the job even if there is a local that could have also done that job. For a faster application process, though, you should apply for the immediate skills shortage jobs. There are fewer options in these categories, but the applications are fast-tracked because they need the positions to be filled very quickly, and it can take just 6 months or less to get those completed. You will need to get an IRD number, which is an inland revenue number. It allows you to pay taxes in New Zealand. Another cool thing about New Zealand jobs is that outdoor jobs are very common here, so it's a cool place to go and take advantage of the great outdoors, take advantage of the stunning scenery, become a ski or snowboard instructor, mountain climbing instructor, do yoga. There are also many farming jobs that become available every year. So if you're looking to get out and get some sun, New Zealand might be a good place to do that. Also, cool thing about New Zealand is after you've worked there for 2 years, as long as you've had a minimum salary of 45,000 New Zealand dollars, you can apply for residency after those 2 years. It can lead there at least. Number 3 is Cambodia, which is actually one of the easiest countries in the world to get a work visa. And there are 2 available, temporary and permanent. Unless you either have a friend in the government or are loaded, you're not going to be eligible for a permanent visa, but you could get a temporary one, which costs just about $100 US. And you'll just need to provide your general information, and a copy of your employment letter will need to be sent to the Minister of the Interior. There are some charity and UN jobs available, but more often what's happening here is you'll find work through the expat community. Teaching English is obviously very popular here, with jobs available in both the public and private sectors. And foreigners can also set up a business in Cambodia, although the process is a little bit more complicated than it is in neighboring countries, but it's an option. Number 4 is Ireland, which has the General Employment Permit, which grants non-EU citizens up to 2 years of legal employment. There's also the Critical Skills Employment Permit, but you would need to fall into a category of specific positions that need to be filled in order to apply for that one. If you search on the Ireland Work Visa website, which is irishimmigration.ie, you'll be able to find all the sectors that are hiring for both of these categories and see if you fit into either of them. Once you have a job offer in writing, you would go to apply for the visa, or your employer would do it for you, and there are just minimal requirements. Again, Ireland is one of the easier countries today to apply for a work permit in. Number 5 is Singapore. The 2 common visas here are the EP Pass, the Employment Pass, or the the E-Pass, the Entrepreneur Pass. The EP Pass is suited to skilled professionals. The E-Pass is aimed at entrepreneurs. Both will allow you to stay in Singapore for 12 months and can be renewed for another year. Singapore is, of course, a thriving economic and business center, but it's not cheap. So you could set up a company in Singapore, but it would cost you 50,000 Singapore dollars. There are also opportunities for what are called somewhat skilled workers or slightly skilled workers. It's a weird translation, but people such as technicians can apply for the S-Pass, and they would just need to prove that they're qualified and that they have a salary of 2,200 Singapore dollars per month. You can also bring your spouses and other dependents on these visas. China. The easiest way to get a work in China is by teaching English. This is by far and away the way that most foreigners are legally spending time in China because of the rapidly growing middle class, which sees English as the key to the future. It's seen as totally indispensable for their children. So there's a huge demand for lessons. You're really never going to go hungry teaching English in China, despite all the teachers that there are there. You will need the certificate degree, police background check, a TOEFL certificate, and there's a $50 administration fee. The teaching visa, which is known as the Z visa, has to be applied through a Chinese embassy or consulate before you go, and you will need sponsorship from a future employer. So you can't just go and hope to be employed. You have to actually have a job lined up. There's also the talent visa or the R visa, which is for people that China considers to be highly skilled. So this is, professors, scholars, people capable of taking top corporation jobs in Chinese companies. It's not going to apply to many people, but that's another route. One thing to note about China is that you should definitely not take the chance of just going and not having a visa. If you do work there without the required documentation, you can be hit with huge fines, even jail time. Deportation and fines would be the least of it. But spending time in a Chinese jail does not sound like a fun way to spend any time to me, so don't cut corners there. Mexico is number 7. And to get a visa in Mexico, you do have to go to an interview at your local consulate, and the company that will employ you has to provide a letter to the Ministry of Immigration. If the company has experience hiring foreigners, the process should be very smooth and easy, but if they don't, then you might want to go the lawyer route because things can get a little bit complicated and you don't want to make any mistakes. You can bring your family with you, of course, on this visa. There's no guarantee for a work permit for them, though, and they must register with immigration within 30 days. Usually there's going to be some requirement for registration for a family coming with you. And as well as being one of the easiest countries to apply for a work permit, Mexico has great transport links to the US and is very close to the US and is all within the same time zone as the US, which is important to note. So Mexico is a really wonderful, probably the best option for trying to get a work permit overseas. Panama is number 8. It has attracted corporations from all over the world. There are countless multinational corporations now with headquarters or hubs in Panama City. So there's a huge demand for foreign workers. If you are from one of the 50 friendly nations, as they're called, in fact, I think there might be 52 now, but basically most countries that you'd be coming from. So the US and Canada are definitely on that list. Most European countries are on that list. I'm willing to bet that wherever you're from, if you're watching this video, you will qualify for the Friendly Nations visa. And then you're eligible for a fast-tracked work permit that also comes with a permanent residency visa. So really great benefit there. You do need to have a written offer from a Panamanian company, and there are many other visas to apply for. If you do qualify for the 50 Friendly Nations visa, the specific countries visa, that's the easiest one and the most straightforward, the way to go. Definitely the fastest as well. But if you don't qualify for that, or if for some reason you think you'd be better off with one of these more specific visas, for example, if you're Italian, you could apply for the Italian National Work Permit. If you marry a Panamanian, you'd be eligible for a work permit. So there are many ways Panama offers many ways to work. You will need to just look into that a little bit more. Another one was the highly skilled worker permit, which you just need a bachelor or postgraduate degree and you'll have the right to work. So Panama really does offer many routes. You will need documentation from your university and the rest of your education history. The only way to work in Panama without a work visa is that your income comes from outside of Panama. So if you're, for example, an online business owner, a digital nomad, as the term is becoming more popular these days, Panama is a great destination, and you don't even need to apply for a visa there for that reason. The United Arab Emirates is our final number 9. It's a long-established trading port, which has turned it into a thriving center of world business, especially in the region. The local customs here are not to be taken lightly. So the customs to do with working, doing business, even just living, are very different. It's an alien way of life to most Westerners, most North Americans. So it'll take some getting used to, but if you're up for that challenge, this is one of the easiest and fastest places to get a work permit in the world. As long as you have everything in order, it can take up to just 40 days or less. Most of the jobs that foreigners are getting here are with free trade zone companies. So free trade zones exist all over the world. It's a zone that was created if a company comes and locates itself in this area, they'll get massive tax breaks and huge incentives. So there are many of those in the UAE's free trade zone, and that's typically who's hiring foreigners here. Once you have your job offer, the Ministry of Labor will review it to determine whether a UAE citizen could fulfill that job or not. But assuming that they can't, you'll get a 2-month visa, which will allow you to start working until your actual visa is finalized. Once you do get your real visa, you will need to go for a medical check and a biometric screening. And one of the things that I've heard they're looking for, they will test your for heart issues. I actually talked to a person who was denied his work visa because he had no idea that he had I don't know if it was an arrhythmia or a heart murmur or some kind of unknown, undetected heart issue that he found out about when he did this screening, the medical screening, and they denied his permit. So that's something to look into. Maybe if you do have any outstanding health issues, something to look into before you actually make your application and go to Dubai or to the UAE and fill out these screenings. And once you've got all of that out of the way, you will need to apply for medical insurance. That's a requirement to be in the UAE. And once all that is done, you will get your Emirates ID card, which you can use for ID purposes in the country, meaning you don't have to carry your passport around anymore, which is a nice thing, makes your pockets a little bit lighter. So there you have it. Those are our top 9 countries for getting a work permit overseas. I hope you found that helpful. Are any of these of interest to you? Have you tried and either succeeded or failed? Do you have any experiences to share with us? If you do, please write in the comments. And remember that we launch these videos every Saturday. So if you're enjoying them, please stay tuned, subscribe, and every Saturday you'll get a new one of these videos delivered straight to you. Thanks for listening. Happy trails.